Welcome to the National Indian Gaming Association's The New Normal, a conversation with Brandon Yellowbird-Stevens about Wisconsin sports betting. My name is Ashley Cope, and I'm the marketing manager for the Indian Gaming Trade Show and Convention. I just wanted to share a few housekeeping tips before we get started. Everyone is muted by default except for our speakers, but if you have any questions during the presentation, please type them into the question or chat box and they will be brought up at the end. This session will also be recorded and available on our website. Now, without further ado, I would like to introduce Victor Rocha, Conference Chairman of the National Indian Gaming Association.
Thank you, Ashley. Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Victor Rocha. My co-host is Jason Giles, and this is The New Normal. In today's conversation, we're talking with Brandon Yellowbird-Stevens, Vice Chairman of the Oneida Nation of Wisconsin, about his tribe's recent sports betting deal with the state of Wisconsin. Vice Chairman Yellowbird-Stevens, welcome to The New Normal. How are you doing?
I'm doing good. Glad to be here.
Well, it's great to have you. First of all, I'd like to tell my readers, so recently, to the surprise of everyone, it was announced that the Oneida Nation of Wisconsin had a new sports betting deal, and it came as a surprise to everyone. And as opposed to California, where it surprised no one. Brandon, tell us a little bit about this deal. And first of all, I guess the most important thing is, how did you keep this incredible deal secret, which was kind of, this is Indian country. There's no secrets here,
Yeah. So when PASPA was struck down, immediately we went to work as far as the diligence is, how can we conduct or operate sports betting in Wisconsin? And so we went through the rigmarole of how that could be done. Is it a constitutional amendment? Is it a compact amendment? How would we proceed? And working with our gaming, and started to attend conferences and looking at would this be a venture for us? We took some good time, but one of the first things we've done is we met with all 11 tribes of Wisconsin, and so we set a foundation and let them know, is like, hey, we're going to look at this. And we want to know, would you support this? And we came up with, like NIGA did with their tenets, their core tenets that they stuck to. So we developed tenets that we would stick to in the state of Wisconsin, making sure there's no compact increases, make sure there's no extra fees. We wanted to make sure that everything as far as governance and tribal sovereignty were intact. That gave us the baseline to get everyone on board to say, all right, we're going to go negotiate this in full faith. And through our compact amendments, there's timelines within each 11 tribes in their compacts. And our compact timeline came up just very fortunately, this last year. And so this time while we were doing our diligence, we put in our notice last year, July 1st. We put in the notice, say we want a compact amendment. And so we found that a compact amendment would be allowable to add sports betting and the mobile device. So through the whole conversation with the other tribes, they stayed on board. We said, this is confidential. We want to make sure we're staying ahead of the curve, or with the curve at least. And we communicated with the tribes almost every step of the way. Once negotiations started, we kept them in the loop as far as how far we're going. We're still in negotiations, and any major obstacles that we've encountered. And so that's kind of how we kept it secret. It was we're up front with the 11 tribes of the state and kept them updated.
Wow. Jason, what do we think about this, man?
I mean, it's right.
11 tribes and nobody broke the secret.
Well,
you know what I mean? That's amazing.
That's the way, we wish it had been playing out state by state, but with all tribes united. But obviously the fact that Wisconsin tribes are able to pull this off is pretty amazing.
And it was real fortuitous that the compact negotiations, that their compact was up and really ready for negotiations, and the fact that they, were fortuitous to see the opportunity and take advantage of it. I mean, Brandon, it's just what a good luck, right?
Well, and the governor, explain the governor's role in this. I mean, if you had the previous governor, it might not have worked out so well.
Right, good point.
Yeah, so that was a big part of our decision moving forward. So if Walker was reelected, this is something that probably wasn't going to happen. And so as Governor Evers was elected, we definitely saw an opportunity to continue forward, moving this venture forward. And so the difficulty was just a new incoming administration and I guess a turnover in the Attorney General, attorney of the Secretary of Administration who does the negotiations. And so that was the difficult part, is just waiting and making sure they catch up to sports betting and gaming in general, which was part of the lag. So what we did was we created a resolution, and we got most of the tribes to pass the resolution to align with our tenants, our core tenants that we would align to. And the whole premise was we're going to create a foundation for all tribes to negotiate kind of the same. And so what we did, we shared our mix, we shared our minimum internal controls as we developed them. Any updates, understanding that 90 to 95% of those mix could be duplicated. There's going to be a little bit difference here and there. And so we wanted to make sure that all of this was fluid for other tribes, because they have to negotiate separately. There's mutual clauses in a lot of the compacts where if anyone negotiates anything newer or better in the compacts, that the other tribes have the ability to negotiate the same amendments.
Wow. That's just, I think this is surprising to a lot of us, but I think really it does show a path forward for a lot of tribes, and that the advantage of working together, and especially with a deal like this, I could see why it was easy to keep a secret, because everyone stands to benefit for it in the long run. So that's just really mind-blowing and really wonderful too, to see that everybody is working together.
What's
now,
the main benefit for the state here, Brandon? Like what's the governor trying to get?
The governor, I guess he's a great governor. He understands tribal sovereignty. He understands the jurisdictional issues. He understands the economic benefits tribes have operating casinos to the tribes, but also to the local communities. And so what sports betting did was our pitch to, also our partners, the Packers, and we talked to other sports, the Bucks. And so they understand the economic impact of driving foot traffic to the area. And that's what was our main pitch, is not necessarily a big revenue generator for our bricks and mortar to sports betting, but to the slots and tables. And so making sure that those redemptions happen at the brick and mortar. So we gave a tourism kind of benefit to our area, make sure we were talking with local leaders and our partners. And so the governor saw that. We also recently did an impact study, which we have a $785 million impact to the local area based on jobs, federal contracts, gaming, our weekly payroll in the tribe. So we were able to show a large economic benefit to the Green Bay area.
It sounds like you guys really did your homework and came in guns blazing. I think especially by doing these analytics and showing that the impact and this is really just smart politics, from the very core of what we at the National Game Association support, and more importantly, you set this template for the rest of Indian country also, because one of the things that we've been talking about is that every state has been completely different from the other one. This is a completely different from Arizona as it is from Florida and New York. And it seems to one that's been done properly in a way that isn't so antagonistic. It doesn't feel like a grab. It feels like everyone's working together to bring the industry to Wisconsin, and that it has a favorable impact all across the board. So you must really be proud about this deal. After you guys announced it, what was the response that you guys got besides shock like mine and Jason?
We got a lot of, of course, a lot of solicitations, but we got a lot of congratulations on and exactly what you're saying. How did you keep it such a secret? And our answer to that really was that, we want to benefit, Wisconsin, Wisconsin responsible gaming. In Wisconsin, they have these, I would say, illegal slots in a lot of the bars and taverns and convenience stores. And so that was one of our things for the tribes is, hey, we can help transfer illegal gaming, illegal sports betting to legal sports betting. And so that was one of the main barriers that the professional sports teams in Wisconsin had was how do you transfer those and how do you limit and protect sports betting and the integrity of the game. And so our pitch to them is like, hey, we want to transfer that 90-80% of illegal sports betting to a legal, well-maintained, well-regulated, over-regulated sports betting venue. And that no better venue of that is with the tribes. And so they did agree with that. We did have some negotiations with them on how we would do that. And so I think that was the biggest thing is re-educating everyone as why gaming is best utilized within the jurisdiction of tribal governments.
Yeah, and one of the surprising things about this conversation also has been your communications with the sports leagues and stuff like that. I think that is really smart. How did when you guys saw this deal and you approached them, what was their response initially? Was there? It seems you guys had the win at your back, so you guys had you guys came in from a strong position, for negotiations.
Yeah, I think the sports teams, they knew it was coming. The Packers organization, they're old school, one of the, the longest standing, I think they're the longest, the Lambeau Field is a historic field, and so.
Yeah, also the winners of the first Super Bowl, right? Am I correct in that?
Yeah, yeah, you are correct.
Sorry, I had to ask your dad. He'll tell me. He would have been a little faster too, by the way.
Yeah, so it was just making sure they understood, the impacts that they would have, but also the limitations that it would also have. Lambeau Field being about 2 to 3 miles off the reservation, and making them understand about the limitations of wanting to do more. And so having a state within Wisconsin gaming is prohibited in the state by the state constitution only through tribal compact and exclusivity with the tribes. So we had to educate them. We also had to educate the local tavern leagues, the legislature. The legislature felt they had some ability to either limit or support it in any particular way, but they did not have that. And that sole negotiation was given to the governor negotiation. And so that's why no one really can touch it.
Well, that is one of the really unique things about this deal is that the fact that you guys were able to go through compact negotiations and having to go around the legislature, and like you just said, I'm sure they felt that they wanted to prove their existence and why they go to work every day, wanted to have a piece of this, and the fact that you guys were able to get it done with the governor. I mean, that was amazing. What was the legislative response that you've heard, maybe personally or through the grapevine? Were they pleased? Do they understand the importance of this deal? Maybe they didn't get a piece of it, or maybe they didn't justify their existence by helping negotiate it, but they do understand the significance of it, right?
Yeah, there was a mixed bag because like most everyone, they were really surprised that it came. They understand it, that we were looking at it, but when the deal popped into, public consumption, there was a mixed bag saying some support it because they're talking about DraftKings legislation, esports. And so we negotiated our mix and, we kept the door open for that. We didn't specifically put in esports or DraftKings, but we left the door open in our mix to be able to expand to that, to see once the market matures a little bit more, is like, how would we enter that arena? Watching the market, don't want to make a, I think what they did in Vegas, built a humongous facility for it, and it kind of tanked. So the legislature was little concerns about the integrity of the state sports, and what kind of sports we were going to be betting on, and making sure it wasn't amateur, but for the most part, they were, I guess, quietly supportive.
What do we think, Jason?
Well, and so you're right there next to the Green Bay Packers and more importantly, the NFL. It's interesting, if you're watching football nowadays, you'll see more and more tribal advertisements at these NFL stadiums. If you keep your eyes open in LA, Vegas, even. So did you hear anything at all from the NFL or Green Bay? Because a couple of things, that the tribe has a gate, an entrance gate at the stadium. Is that correct? And then I'm sure, and then probably have a tribal suite there somewhere. I mean, and now you're engaged in sports gambling. Anything from the NFL at all about potential conflicts or anything like that?
Well, the NFL was requiring that all new negotiated or negotiated contracts have to include a sports betting provision, and so that was coming down from the NFL on how they can or can't market sports betting. And so there's specifically, we could not market with them. But after it was said and done, then they wanted to market with us and said, you expressly put in your contract that we can't market with you. And so we had our own separate gate and partnership with the Green Bay Packers. And so we have Oneida Nation gate facing the west side, the most, I guess, traveled in and out gate in Lambeau Field. And so we have other gaming advertisements, but not necessarily to sports betting. We can't put sports betting on Green Bay, the G on our sports betting tickets or anything like that, or in our kiosks.
Wow. Well, that's really interesting, but it's not surprising, because I think you guys are still in the early rounds of this. One of the interesting things that you talked about is how you guys didn't put yourself in a corner by leaving it open with the mix and for sports betting. You touched, there's a couple of things I'd like to go back onto. What was the response? Have you heard back from the other sports betting companies? Because you guys didn't do the mobile component, and if you look at what happened in Florida, the sports betting companies went and they're doing their own initiative, and the Seminoles were not happy about that. But in California, we have a different deal. Right now, everything's still on lockdown and on hush hush, but there doesn't seem to be as much opposition from the sports betting companies. What kind of response have you guys got?
I guess the response was, I would say I would give a lot of credit to Mississippi Choctaw. So we talked with Mississippi Choctaw about the rollout of their sports betting, and one of their advice, that advice to us that we took to heart, was not to roll it out without the mobile device. And so in our compact amendment, we have mobile device and sports betting. And so we've taken that, we've sent our people down there. So how do you roll it out? How do you educate Wisconsin residents on how to first, learn how to do it? But the mobile rollout is going to come, as the supply demand allows it to. But also the thing that we saw across the nation is when the states are negotiating this, they are trying to limit it to tribally owned parcels within the reservation. And so I think that's the same thing that happened in Washington. And so they wanted to limit not the entire reservation mobile betting, but parcels that are owned within.
Right, just a casino, the parking lot or something like that.
Yeah, so we're looking at strategically purchasing, land all the time. But so to put a kiosk, to put general areas where people can hop on the res and make a bed and hop back off. But for the most part, we haven't heard a whole lot about from the companies, and how we will or won't operate the mobile device.
Right. Well, it seems like you guys have done such a great job for an anticipation. I think everybody can see down the road that mobile is an option. I think the fact that that this wasn't just the Oneida Nation, but the Oneida Nation with other tribes in your wake and ready for that opportunity. Already, I've heard there's some negotiations and stuff like this. What do you think what do you think is coming behind you in your wake? How do you think the other tribes are going to deal with this?
Well, hopefully, as the state, I would say, basically gave us training wheels. They didn't want us to bet on in-state college Division I sports, whether it's March Madness or not. They didn't want us betting on amateur sports. And so we were agreeable to that. I mean, it was actually a sticking point. There was a negotiation barrier that we couldn't do. And so hopefully tribes behind us, as we're developing and showing that we're responsible, we're ethical, and we have a lot of regulations in place that will show that, we're running the operation, the ethics will be on those sports teams. If the Packers are submitting, their updated lists that are prohibited from sports betting, those are the type of things that we're looking at. It's up to the entity that wants to make sure that there's ethical sports betting, not us. We will have a lot of controls in place, a lot of regulations in place. And when the state sees that, we make sure we put in a provision that transition to expand to reservation wide and to maybe perhaps include UW-Madison, Panthers, and Marquette University into the betting. They will see that we have the controls in place to manage those type of ethical concerns. And those tribes that are coming behind us, will have a stronger position to negotiate those back into the compacts to do reservation wide and to include those teams that they have concerns about.
Absolutely, and I think one of the big points that people seem to miss is that by betting on college sports, you're taking it off the black market, and that is one of the most profitable segments of the market is college sports, especially in the United States. So I think legalizing it makes it a viable option, takes it off the black market. You have more control, you have more regulation. And so I think it's a very important thing. I think what we're looking at here is this, with concern, with dealing with addiction already. We've seen a couple scandals, we've seen a couple players already at the college level and stuff. So I think people are just hypersensitive about it. And rightfully so. And I'd like to go back real quick to talk. You were mentioning the Choctaws, and for those of you who went to our conference in July, we had a session with the Choctaws, and they're really a wonderful group of people. They're doing great work. They've been trailblazers in sports betting, and they're also trailblazers in mobile. So they have a really great foundation and a great knowledge base that they share with everyone. You just have to ask. They have a business and great people. Wouldn't you say so, Brandon?
Oh yeah, definitely. They helped us, with the technical aspects, but also the broad scope of making sure that, hey, we did this. We could have did this a little bit better. This is how you would do it better. And so that's the same way how we operate in Wisconsin. Is we want to make sure that we're operating as a tribal unit, 11 separate tribes operating a high quality venue in sports betting, and making sure that everyone understands that gaming within the tribal structure is the most sound, regulated, and safe way to operate any gaming operation.
Yeah, I have to tell you, man, this has just been a really great conversation. I'm hearing a lot of things that just make me very positive, very excited. I think you guys are laying down a template here for a lot of tribes to work with. I think, we've had this discussion before that, again, every single deal has been completely different than the other. and snowflakes even, each one's completely individual. But I think this is a template for the rest of Indian country to come together, to work together, to work as one, because we're all going to reap the benefits of it going down the road. Now, I'd like to talk a little bit about implementation. Now, first of all, who did you choose as your partner again?
IGT.
IGT. Also, I believe IGT was initially partners with the Choctaws, and they've done some other deals. Now, in this world of sports betting, what was your criteria for your sports betting partner?
The biggest one was regulation and having those safeguards in place, where we wanted to make sure that we're going to operate the sports book, and so Oneida always wants to operate their own stuff with a vendor that's either going to come in and train us, show us how to do it, and then we'll either cut ties or continue to operate. I think those are the type of things we always make sure. But definitely the safeguards we wanted to make sure that we put in our RFP was a high priority.
Right, and IGT has a great working relationship with Indian country, and they've been a partners of ours for many years. Now, one of the big issues that came in was in an article last week was that there's been a delay in the rollout of sports betting. Can you tell us why there's been a delay?
For the most part, it's supply demand, and so a lot of the processors, just the little bitty chip that goes into all these machines is coming from overseas, and so cars, everything that uses that processor is being on back order, and so we're waiting, and so hopefully we're going to roll out. We're going to do a phase approach, and so when we're retrofitting our existing restaurant into a sports betting lounge, we're going to have temporary kiosks as phase one, and roll it out as fast as we can. And so hopefully we're looking November-ish, end of the month, December. We don't know. As soon as they get in, we're ready to roll.
That's got to be frustrating, and by the way, it's not just IGT, it's across the board, when implementing it. And Jason, what are we thinking, brother?
Yeah, someone asked, it's a good question. Is the NFL requiring you, Oneida Nation, or any of the tribes to buy or lease official data from the NFL in order to conduct sports wagering and use the NFL logo and team logos and things of that nature?
Well, they tried. I think that's what they wanted to separate our existing contract out, to say we can't. They wanted to do a separate negotiation as far as sports betting and advertising. What we told them right off the bat is, nobody else is paying for that, and that's your business model on how you are going to sell your official stats to a vendor that we may use. And so that was one of the sticking points in negotiations with the state as well, though. They wanted us to use official data and say, yeah, one of the official data users that we'll have, has an agreement with. And so those are the kind of things we were out front with. They said, we're not going to pay extra. It's like, whoever you guys use for your official sports data person, we're more than likely going to use, because at that point in time, there wasn't a whole lot of them. And so we wanted to make sure that, still we're going to use them, official sports data, but we don't want any amendment. We don't want any official negotiation agreement. And we'll just make sure that we do it.
Yeah, because New Jersey and West Virginia famously told them off as well. So I'm surprised they're still trying to push that. But, even at the sports books here in DC, they're William Hill run, but, you go in there and you can't even tell unless you really look. There's no NFL. They don't use the team names or anything, but they use the city names. So, and they've got, all the sports channels on and everything. So, I just don't know what the leagues in general think that people are going to get out of buying their official game data. But
it's funny about that is that you still see the leagues and the media companies still using offshore booking data as their
right.
An official, you know what I mean? Bovada brings the odds or something like that too. So it's not, it's part of a bigger problem.
Right.
You know what I mean? So, but that's really interesting, and congratulations on that. I think we as Native Americans should know, especially at this point. You know, when they start to put this down on writing, and you know, it's never good. You know what I mean? It's never good. Sign the sports betting deal. It's on a blanket. You know what I mean? So, we have a friend in here, a question in here from our friend Jill Dorson from Sports Handle, and Jill has been a guest on the program, and she's really brilliant. She said, Brandon, can you give us a picture of what this will look like physically? The casino is 3 miles away from Lambeau Field, but could you explain what will be at Lambeau or at the Bucks Arena, and how people would get, I'm sorry, my thing is running, would get funneled from the arenas to the casino, and also who's running sports betting for Niles, which we answered to that. So Joe wants to know, what's the marketing push? You did mention that it's you will have some other signage and stuff like that, but you can't use the official names, and so you kind of both have to dance around it, right?
Yeah, definitely. We've done it before where we've used green and gold. We used the big game, instead of Super Bowl. There were certain keywords that we couldn't use. They were either registered by the NFL, Super Bowl, the Packers. We would use, a different, I guess, G. Yeah. So we would do it, we have a large marketing, as any casino does. And so the big buzz was, just sports betting in general. And so we're using that buzz to kind of to roll out, the venue on how it's going to happen. And so we're definitely going to get help with the state on the regulation portion. And so we're going to get a little marketing per se, not as the sports betting, venue, but actually, educating individuals on how to do it in a responsible way. And so we're utilizing our outlets in a different way, but driving them, making sure they understand that, you have to create your account at the bricks and mortar. You can you can conduct bets on the reservation on specific parcels within the reservation, but you have to redeem back at the bricks and mortar. So that, in turn drives traffic too, and hopefully getting to that, the younger demographic that we're looking for as a transition from, what gaming looks like today, bricks and mortar, to what it might look like to 20 years from now. And so I guess to the point of, what does gaming look like in the future, is we're trying to determine and be ready for that, what it looks like 20 years from now.
Yeah, and I think you're probably not even going to have to wait 20 years, because I think with the league and their new mentality towards gaming, I think it's moving a lot faster than a lot of us have expected, and especially in look at what happened in Arizona, and the real embrace by the leagues of gaming and stuff like that. So I think it's a very short time before they see the light in Wisconsin, if we can say that. I think they're already halfway there. You know what I mean? So, Jason, what else we got here, brother?
Yeah. So, I mean, one of the last things I guess we can talk about here is, did this, and I don't even know if you can, but I mean, I take it the tribe, we know sports betting's not the biggest revenue generator, although it might be, given the sports. You're in a town that's just, great sports town. What can you say? You left out UW Green Bay. They're even Division I basketball. And what is the tribe looking to capture here? Obviously increased revenue, but do you think it'll draw in that many more folks, or do you think it's just is it more of a Sunday type thing, 8 times a year when the Packers are there playing?
Well, we're hopefully, we're looking at, the Grammys, the, Academy Awards. I mean, all those things are really under the sun, and how we offer those type of bets. And so, the Brewers understood, they have they're one of the longest games, to watch. And so to keep people involved in watching the games, these prop bets throughout, the game keeps people engaged. And so working with and watching the market, develop on how to keep viewers watching, let's say if you're not even a Brewers fan, like, yeah, I might watch this because of my particular bets. And Green Bay is the same way. So how do you keep people involved in the sports throughout, and understanding that, this is more than sports. This is, reaching out to other venues that have, probability of possibly a chance. So I think just expanding and making sure we're understanding the market and moving with the market, I think, we'll pull in those new individuals, introducing the slots, introducing the new games. I think those are the type of things we're looking at as far as bringing people into our bricks and mortar.
And,
What-
go ahead, Jason.
We bring up in-game sports betting. One of the states that's flying under the radar right now with legalized sports betting is Virginia. And they legalized sports betting in November through ballot initiative. And literally by January, everybody had the sports betting app. And it's run by Caesars. You may have seen the commercials. I forget the comedian's name who does the commercials. He's on JB Smoove. He does those Caesars commercials. But, Virginia, and I've got friends in Virginia who went and got the app. The sport in-game sports betting is just so entertaining, and it has such potential, especially in a game like football where you have pauses between plays, or baseball, pauses between pitches, and even pauses between innings. It's just amazing what Virginia's been able to do with just the app. There's no brick and mortar sports betting operations in Virginia. It is all app. And you just go online, download the app on your phone, and then set up an account. So, there's a lot of potential there for that. I mean, I can't believe how people that I didn't even know were betting are now betting on stuff, just silly stuff, like you said, even the Emmys and the Grammys. So it's amazing.
Yeah, well, also a couple weeks ago, I had met a guy named Jay Penske, who's the part of Penske Automotive and stuff, and he owns Jay Penske Media, owns Rolling Stone, owns a bunch of stuff like that. And we were having a conversation. One of the first things he asked me is if if they could bet on the the Academy Awards. So I thought that was interesting for him. And also they own automotive sports and stuff like that too. So, and the question, Brandon, is really, when can we see mobile? Mobile is the killer app. You know what I mean? Everyone is, when can we see mobile in Wisconsin?
We're hoping, end of October, beginning of November. And so setting up the kiosk, setting up all the infrastructure for that, I think we're ready to go. There's a lot of barriers that we had to find out, as far as once the compact was signed, then the Secretary of Interior signature, can we actually bring product on site? So I think that's as far as organization and, I guess the logistics is actually having product on site, can't use it without signature from the Secretary of Interior. So those are some of the insights that I would, really, flesh out. Because if you have that stuff all ready to roll, without a signature, you can have a contract signed. I think those are the logistics that, we kind of went through that would be really helpful for anyone else out there to say, all right, you got to find that stuff out right there. So you can have a turnkey event right there if you understand that you don't need a signature from the Secretary of Interior before you have it on site. But yeah, we're still looking at, beginning of November. We're looking at, beginning of the year to have our lounge ready to roll before, the Super Bowl, rolling in right into March Madness. So there's a lot of things we're looking up to, and a lot of anxiety, I guess, a lot of sports bettors out there that I never knew, as Jason said, that just bet on just random things. And so we're looking at what those random things are. One of the things that the organizations, the professional sports team, didn't want a few things like bet on, like the first play of the game, or is someone going to get hurt? Those are some of the things that, someone running on the field. I think there was a bet like that placed on one of the games. Somebody placed a bet and ran on the field, and so there was some certain things that the sports teams did not want to happen, and we were definitely open to that. And we weren't willing to do that anyways.
Yeah. We have a question here from Joe Swamp. He says, are you sharing any revenue from sports betting with the state? Good question. Thanks, Joe.
No, that was one of the tenets that we had in a resolution, that we were not going to get any increased fees for sports betting. But what'll happen is just, when you're submitting your revenue, your gross revenue to the state, it might increase by just, a small margin because your revenues increase. But it's not specifically for sports betting. It's just the increase of gaming in general.
That's a good question. And actually that kind of ties into what Jill Dorson had a follow-up question. She said, the goal for most tribes is to bring foot traffic into the casino to keep jobs and further be able to fund tribal initiatives. How many new jobs do you anticipate that sports betting will create? And what kind of programs are you hoping to be able to fund? Good question, Jill. Thank you.
Well, I guess the latter is like, I think, it's just more of tribal budgeting. It's not going to be a major increase as far as sports betting. We did consider that in the beginning. So any new venue that a tribe's going to do, whether it's taxation, whether it's, increased lease fees, whether it's a new sports or gaming venue, we think about politically, like how are we going to tie this to maybe an earmark to say these revenue sources are going to go specifically to, youth enrichment, youth programs or something. So it's a cell that we would specifically use those funds for that. We would. But in this case, we stayed tight with what we said is that we're just going to negotiate in full faith. We're going to say the state, you recognize tribal sovereignty. You recognize that we will do whatever we want with this money. And then it's generally going into back into programs and services. And so I think we're probably about 8 to 15 new employees potentially through this, operating the lounge and the kiosks at various locations. We have 3 major locations on the reservation.
Yeah, and also, I've been to your reservation, and one of the things that's really great is that you guys are right across the street from the airport, which is phenomenal if you're one of those people like me who has to get to the airport 2 hours early so I don't miss it. So the fact that you guys are so close to the airport and so close to Lambeau Field is just really fortuitous, is really the only word. I mean, it's just such a great location, and a lot of great opportunities for that property. And like you said, you have 2 other casinos on the property also, right?
Yep.
Yeah. So Jason, what do you there's a lot here, man. I mean, it's just a really smart things happen. Brandon, cover your ears, Brandon. We're going to talk about nice things about you. Just a lot of good things, a lot of positive good things about this deal, right?
Well, I mean, it's just another example of how this is rolling out state by state. And I know for 2 or 3 years, everybody was on NIGA's case to, help out here, help out there, but it just points out the nuances of each state and frankly, each governor. You don't, unless you've got the governor that's going to work with you and meet with you, you're really facing an uphill climb. But even in a, you take a state like Arizona, where it wasn't the greatest of relationships, they got it done. And now we're just waiting for the 2 next biggest pillars to fall, California and Oklahoma. And, once that's established, I think we'll have a good, solid base of sports betting in this country, where maybe eventually, you guys can start signing compacts with other tribes that are running sports betting operations, pooling bets, all that kind of stuff should be in the near future, frankly. One of these days, I guess the banking laws will catch up with where everybody is. But, you look at a state like Virginia, I mean, somehow they're getting the credit card companies and banks to just let them fund Virginia state residents' sports betting accounts. I mean, what happened to that? I mean, what happened to those little codes that the credit cards use and would block transactions for the offshore accounts and things of that nature? So
those sacred codes, remember those things? Yeah.
Well, yeah. And it was unfair to the banks and the credit cards, where the government was trying to put off all the regulation of it onto them. And they're like, but and it's unworkable. But now all of a sudden it seems to be working just fine in Virginia, or the banks there and everything are turning a blind eye. And don't think that there aren't people that are getting around the geofencing and all that kind of stuff. I mean, it's eventually, this country, if we're the United States of America, we're going to have some common set of banking rules here. And I think Wisconsin is going to be right there at the forefront of that with your congressional delegation and everything, and the need for just ease of transactions and everything. You're leaving a lot of money on the table if we don't get that mobile component up and running, and more importantly, funding it, financing it. You're leaving a lot of money on the table. But like I said, if Virginia's worth a look right now, I'm sure there's folks on this call that know a lot better how it's working in Virginia, or somehow, getting around all these Wire Act restrictions and everything. But yeah, that's about it, Victor. I mean, one more domino down in the state by state rollout of sports betting.
Well, and you touched on a really important point, which is that, as another state goes down, I think it's going to become more obvious that mobile has to be part of Indian country going in the future. I think we're going to see a critical point, and hopefully, the legislature and the president and others can see that this is a real need, and that the tribes need to have this option also. You know what I mean? They can't be left out of the game, and a lot of people would like to see the tribes left out. But I think when you see deals like in Wisconsin and stuff like that, it makes me very optimistic that the tribes are getting this right.
Brandon, I don't think you don't have to answer this, but I see more and more sports books are taking Bitcoin as methods of payment, and I just don't know where this is all going to end. But tribes maybe at some point should look at starting up their own bank on the reservation, and just having their own financing options on the reservation.
Yeah, we do. I mean, we have our own bank. We're one of 17 100% tribally owned banks in the country. But with that, FDIC only allows you to have, I think, a certain amount of leverage within your own bank. So we couldn't give it, our payroll's too big. But there's certain limitations, but there's potential options there for sure, is like looking at Bitcoin, looking at that. We have looked at it maybe a couple of years ago. But I would add, though, also one of the unfortunate things was the pandemic. Going through a pandemic, understanding and putting in context that, hey, we can't run bricks and mortar, having stay-at-home orders, state of emergencies where you can't have large groups of individuals. This would be an essential function for a tribe to have through a pandemic to continue some type of revenue or operation. And so that did kind of add to kind of the pushing points that got this deal through, as it was pushing through a pandemic, and understanding that we had to shut down our casino for 68 days, which was a major hit on our tribal allocations to programs and services. And so we laid off 800 employees, and we still have 700, almost 800 employees laid off as a result of that. So those are the type of things that as a tribal government, we always stress to say revenue from the gaming operations fund programs and services that directly go right back to the tribal membership. And without that, without being able to tax, individuals, having a taxation outside of not having land leases and whatnot, that's a vital function of how we operate our gaming, operate our governmental services.
You know what? And we have one more question, and actually, there's going to be two. My first one is: did you guys run this by the bingo ladies, and what did they think about the sports betting deal?
That's a question as far as the first bet. Who's going to take the first bet? And so we talked about the bingo queens.
The bingo queens. There you go.
The bingo queens. Yeah. And so how they're going to be involved. We wanted to make sure that they were involved in from the 1970s when we're doing bingo in our our gym to where we're at now is, moving into technology into the future, that there's a connection that directly, that they started, they were the trailblazers at the time.
Right. And what we're talking about, for those who don't know, is that when the casino started, it started with the ladies called the Bingo Queens. And they just released a book about 2 years ago talking about the birth of the casino for the Oneida Nation. And it started with these very strong-minded women. And some, they're still there, and some are still working there too. So it just goes to show you how important our history is to gaming, and how important our history is to the future. We have one more question from an anonymous attendee, and what they want to know is there a timetable for other Wisconsin tribes to go live with sports betting? Now, I know they were good about keeping your secret, and I don't know if you're being held to a secrecy, but have you heard anything about the other tribes? Are they lined up, getting ready to go? Is there something you can tell us?
Well, we haven't asked, but we did lay the foundation to say, here's our mix, here's how we did it. Here's our struggles, that we couldn't overcome. And so we offered our services, and this is how we did it. This is what we negotiated, and any assistance that we may provide will be right there. Just like Choctaw was for us, Mississippi Choctaw was for us. And we wanted to make sure that we're being helpful. But as far as that, we haven't asked. We assume other tribes are, but that also, if there are Me Too amendments, they exercise the Me Too amendments, or if there are provisions in their compact allow them that they have a certain time period to bring forward any amendments or any negotiations, they may do so. But we haven't asked.
Yeah, I assume that you can pretty well be assured that still waters are running deep right now, and that there's a lot of activity going around, and that, I'm sure no one's going to want to be left behind when this whole thing takes off. So I think we can assume that there's a lot going on. And then we have one more question. Joe Swamp has another question. Goes, what platform is your slot accounting system on? And are you going to continue to provide player points for sports betting? Now, this is an interesting question. I've seen this, and that's about, how to make sure that the terrestrial is still in contact with the mobile. So people want to make sure that they can use their player points on sports betting, and that they're still getting those player points. So is it still too early in the process right now to answer this question?
It's too early in the process. It's a lot of, point of sales we try to do. As far as we have 7 C stores, we're trying to connect our point of sales with our C stores to getting points that originate from the gaming operation as well. And so that's kind of like an overall broad thing. We're trying to connect more than just sports betting to our existing player point system, to broader goals in the tribe too. So it's a big question. That's
wow.
Yeah.
Well, listen, Joe, I hope that answered your question. Jason, I think this was a phenomenal interview. Brandon, this was great. There was so much. First of all, congratulations. Great deal getting it done without letting anybody know until you dropped that bomb on all of us. We were all shocked, everybody in the industry. There's a lot here to be optimistic about. You guys have done it right every step of the way. I know as I've been to your res, I've met your people. Obviously, your dad and I are very good friends, and your mom. Just congratulations, man. What a great deal. Right, Jason? We're done, aren't we, buddy?
Yeah, that's it. That's excellent.
Yeah, it was good. So on that, we're going to wrap up. Brandon, thank you so much. Again, you know what? Congratulations. When I get to Wisconsin, I can't ready to put in a bet. And I will bet for the Green Bay Packers, not against them, as a sign of friendship and honor. So again, thanks very much. Next week, we're going to be in Las Vegas at G2E, so there won't be, but we'll be back the week after that. We'll be probably talking about sports betting or whatever else important that comes up between now and then. So thank you, everybody. Thank you, Ashley. Thank you, Jason Giles. And again, Thank you most importantly to Brandon Yellowbird-Stevens, Vice Chairman of the Oneida Nation of Wisconsin. So thank you, sir. Goodbye.
Thank you, Brandon. Take care.